So if we go to differences and approaches, we can see on this slide here the rehabilitation view as opposed to the independent living view. So in the rehabilitation view, we've got areas like the terms for defining the problem: impairment, skill, and deficiency. Where is the problem located? In the person. What's the solution? Professional intervention. Who is the person? Patient or client? Who's in charge? The professional. What defines results? Maximum possible individual functioning as judged by professionals. Now that language is very much saying that here we have a situation where things are done to people. Whereas if we look at the independent living view and the language there, we're looking at dependence on professionals, relatives, and others who take over control in your life. We're looking at, in terms of defining the problem is the dependence on professionals, relatives, and others. The problem is located actually in the environment and the way services do their work. The solution is the removal of barriers, advocacy, consumer control, and self-advocacy. The person is the person, or in this case, interestingly, citizen. What defines the results? Instead of maximum possible individual functioning, we're looking at living independently, being in control of your life, regardless of how much assistance you need to do so. Can you see the shift there in the thinking and the language there, the way that it's framed? So here we have like a little case study. Who is George? George is a person with a mental age of 4 years and 3 months. He's a person with an IQ of 30, so profoundly learning disabled. And in these terms, it says severely mentally retarded. Not a term that I would use these days, but in those days, yes, it would be. A person who has an indication of organicity, including difficulty with anger, angles, closure, retrogression, oversimplification, and an inability to improve poorly executive drawings. And a person with an acute temper and flare-ups directed to staff. So there's our description of George. What does he need? He needs a program for children because his mental age is 4 years and 3 months. He needs to be protected from the world, to learn very simple tasks, to learn these skills separately from non-disabled people because he's so different from them. He needs highly specialized staff who can address issues of retrogression, closure, etc. And he needs an environment where his temper can be controlled, to be repaired and sent back to the real world when he is better controlled. Now, this is where I would be asking for comments on this case study as to what goes wrong. What is wrong with this? Is this okay? This is very typical of the sort of thing that I would have seen years ago. And is that okay? Well, there are people who may say, well, yes, it is okay. It's a description of George and it tells us what he needs. So yes, probably that is okay. So if we then look at it again, who is George? Let's now think about it in the PCP way. Here it is again. George is a 40-year-old man who's missed most typical experiences, has never had a real job. We're not talking about his IQ here. We're talking about George as a person who's experienced in life. A person with no income who is poor. A person who's been isolated all his life. A person who has no contacts or connections to the wider community. A person who has little control over the direction of his life. And a person who has more difficulty learning new skills than most people. a person who is treated as a child by his mother, a delightful man who makes a difference in the lives of those around him. What a different perspective that is. What does he need? A lot of experiences, a real job, an income, to be included and present in the community, relationships with other people and connections to community. He needs friends. He needs a vision for the future and support in getting there. Someone who can speak out on his behalf, and a lot of support in learning the more people who see him and treat him as an adult. People who can enjoy him. And more, oh, I've repeated that, sorry about that. So it's a very different feel to the same guy that's presented in two different ways. And this is like a portrait of George as a meaningful, real, whole individual, rather than somebody who's got an IQ of 30 and has behaviors, etc. Okay, we need to understand those things, but that's not the main focus around George. Looking at module 2, but we'll go through module 2 very quickly, and then you'll see what I've included in that, and then you've got the full picture. So I've included transitions in module 2, and looking at the sorts of transitions that people may have. Now, we've already done work around transitions, so yeah, we know, but these are the sorts of transitions that are important in people's lives. And again, this could be an exercise that you do. You can present it as an exercise, and getting people on the training to think about what short-term transitions do they do in a day, for instance, and what do they consider long-term. I mean, getting married, for instance, might be something you see as a long-term transition, huge transition. This can be delivered as just speaking to the slide, or it can be delivered as an exercise or a discussion. Lots of things you can do with that. And I think in developing the training, we can make suggestions as to how you might deliver that particular piece of content. In terms of transitions, again, a slide here. What are the steps to success? So what are the steps to success, the positive reasons for transitions? What are the possible blockers to success and how you reduce them, and who should be involved, how and why, and then what resources are required. The review, did it work, or does anything need to change?